Since I was a little girl, I have been fascinated with the night sky. Well, more specifically, by the stars. I just love the way they shine as they light up the darkened sky. And as I began to grow older, this fascination grew right alongside me. As this fascination began to grow and grow, I began to learn more and more about the stars. One of the very first things that I ever learned about the stars was that we are all made of stardust. And knowing that I was made of stardust, the very thing that makes these stars shine, it gave me a sense of purpose, a sense of belonging in my world. And though this is not something that is unique to only me, it's something that has drastically made up the person I am today. But the stars have been influencing people since the dawn of time, whether in navigation, through science and philosophy, or in religious stories and folklore that have shaped the way people perceive the sky. The stars have a unifying power. Now, back to this idea of navigation, the stars were actually our very first navigational tool. They were utilized primarily by those who were voyaging across the sea. The first mention we have of this is around 1000 BCE, by those who were colonizing the Polynesian islands. They liked to use the brightest stars in the night sky because they were easily visible with the naked eye. So they would use these bright stars along with mythical song and story. So their methods were a little less than scientific. But as we started to move forward in time, the ancient Greeks began to use Ursa Minor, or the Little Bear, as a navigational tool. This is also around the same time when things began to be regularly written down. So this is when we start to hear stories that mention astronavigation. One of the most prominent of this time is speculated to be written around the middle of the 1st century CE. The story details a conversation between Pompey and one of his sailors. This details when Pompey asks the sailor how he uses the stars to navigate the night sky, or navigate through the sea using the night sky. The sailor responds, explaining how he uses these circumpolar stars, which are the stars that never set in the night sky because of their proximity to the celestial poles to navigate his way through the open seas. This was first written down in ancient Rome, but was being utilized all over the world. In the Arab Empire, there was a mathematician and astronomer named Azophi. Azophi was obsessed with the Greek mathematician and astronomer Ptolemy. Ptolemy spent his life studying the stars. And he created these intricate star maps and even went on to formulate the first theory on the structure of the universe. His theory would later be known as the geocentric or Earth-centered universe theory, which, as the name suggests, expressed how he thought that the Earth was the middle of our solar system. Azophi loved this theory, so he put it in this book, along with most of his other findings and a few of his own. This book would come to be known as the Book of Fixed Stars and used by those who were traveling the Silk Road. This book was originally written in Arabic, as this was the language of scholars at the time, but this is when the scholars began to travel all over the world. So these texts began to be translated into Latin, so they were available to more people. This is also when people started to move away from this geocentric or Earth-centered universe theory and towards a more heliocentric or sun-centered universe theory. We usually hear Galileo credited with this theory because he was the one who ultimately proved its legitimacy, but it was first proposed 100 years earlier by Copernicus. But when Copernicus introduced the theory, he was backing it with a lot of his own findings and ideas, so it wasn't widely accepted at the time. But then Galileo came along and invented his telescope. This telescope was able to show us that what Copernicus had been saying 100 years prior was in fact the truth. This telescope also gave us the ability to see that our universe was made up of clusters of stars, not just clouds of dust, which was the current theory of the universe at the time. This revolutionized astronomy forever. As important as scientific discovery has been for the development of human civilization, in equal part, religion and folklore have played that same role. For as long as people have been alive, we have been telling stories to explain the things happening all around us. This is where we get our first religions from. Many of these first religions also lie in the stars. Some of the first people to start asking these questions about God and religion were the ancient Mesopotamians. They believed that their gods lie on this plane that sat directly above the stars. So as they noticed that the stars were moving in the night sky, they believed that the gods were controlling them to move in a specific way. And as they were moving in a specific way, that was the gods telling them what was going to happen in the future. And so they began to track these star movements and write them down. They became our world's very first star mappers as a way to communicate with their gods. But they weren't the only people to have these stories of great warriors and leaders and gods that lie in the stars. Many other people had these same stories, particularly in the stories of the constellations. One of the most notable is that of Pleiades. Pleiades, or the Seven Sisters, is made up of some of the brightest stars in the night sky and can be seen with the naked eye from almost anywhere in the world. And this is why the stories span that same distance. In ancient Mesopotamia, they believed that Pleiades were the seven sons of the goddess Ishtar, and praying to them to protect their people from evil spirits. Across the ocean, the Native American Pawnee people believed that this were 6 older brothers who saved their 7th youngest sister from an evil, rotting skull. In Latvian folklore, it was said to be the thunder god Siv that was stolen by the devil and used to create thunder and lightning. In New Zealand, Pleiades was said to be the 7 sisters who held the secret to life. But they soon became greedy and didn't want to share their secret any longer, and so they were banished to the night sky, forever holding their torches. As you can see, there are almost as many different stories as there are ancient civilizations, and this is just for a singular constellation. Each civilization has always been looking to the stars for these answers as a connector between the gods and those of us here on Earth. As we've started to move forward in history, we haven't necessarily gone away from the idea that there is spirituality in our stars. In fact, we have started to combine both the spirituality and the scientific. One of the most notable scientists who have done this in the last century is Carl Sagan. He's the most known for his time working on his documentary series called The Cosmos. In an episode of The Cosmos, he famously says, "We are all made of stars." He goes on to explain that the elements that make over 90% of the human body were first created by the stars. So from hydrogen and oxygen, nitrogen and carbon, every element that makes up the human body was first created by a star. And even further than this, all elements that make up all living matter can be traced back to clouds of stardust that were scattered all across the universe during a death of a star. So without these beautiful burning balls of gas, we would never have the elements that make up all living matter. And therefore we would never exist. So we really do have the stars to thank for our existence. Since the beginning of time, people have been searching for this connection between the gods, the stars, and those of us here on Earth. Many times we have looked to our sky for answer, whether it was the ancient Greeks and Romans who would revolutionize astronomy for everyone, or the ancient Babylonians who were star mapping to communicate with their gods. This has always been part of human nature, this innate searching for a greater purpose in and unity of our universe. I believe Sagan said it best. We are a way for the universe to know itself. Some part of our being knows this is where we came from. We long to return, and we can. because the cosmos is also within us. We are made of stardust. Thank you.